one Tire Metalhead Weatherman here. Hopefully you guys are doing well. You've had a good Tuesday. So as far as the weather's concerned, we're going to be talking about the tropics, and I already know what you're thinking, and you have to think that I'm going to talk about it. LIDIA. What the heck? Literally from just a mid-grade category 1 all the way to category 4 at landfall. I don't think anybody was forecasting that at all. But that just shows how quickly the weather can change, and that's why you always need to be watching out. So major impacts are going on across the western coast of Mexico, in particular towards Puerto Vallarta. I've only looked at the name maybe once or twice here, but that's right about where the storm has made landfall here. I actually tried to look at some webcams earlier once I heard landfall had been made. All of them are down, so it's pretty serious over there towards the west coast of central Mexico here. Keep these guys in your thoughts and prayers here, because this is taking a gnarly little turn here. So of course we're gonna go ahead and take a look at that. The hurricane force winds are onshore right now. We're just to the south of Puerto Vallarta, and we also have Manzanillo. Okay, I think it's Manzanillo. That's catching some of the onslaught. We will eventually see the center of circulation go through central Mexico here. Aguas Calientes. I don't know if Aguas Calientes. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Feel free to correct me in the comments. But there is, oh wow, tequila's a name. But there is a lot of population centers on the within this cone here in the past. So very disheartening to see all of this, and we were hoping that this would stay weak, but we've definitely, unfortunately, taken a turn for the cereal here. Hurricane and tropical storm warnings run rampant across the coastline here. And we'll probably see even tropical storm warnings and hurricane warnings even issued further inland here. Wouldn't even be surprised to see places like Tequila, for example, and I'm not sure if I can pronounce this, but yeah, Del Rio. I'm gonna go ahead and say that Del Rio here, under the gun here. It's just amazing how quickly things have changed. I'm honestly mind blown. I'm pretty sure not too many in the weather community were expecting this to just explode like it has. So like I said, really worried about impacts across this region. Flooding is another big problem, because towards central Mexico there's also a lot of mountains, and mudslides are also possible, especially across the state of Nayarit. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing these right, of course, because this is a whole nother country, whole nother culture, and for the most part a whole nother language. So that being said, if I'm butchering these, messing these up, hey, like I said, feel free to correct me in the comments, but go easy on me. But storm surge is going to be ridiculous from this. LIDIA will be causing incredible rip current conditions, even in the Baja California Peninsula for the next day. So very unfortunate stuff going on here. But there's another reason why LIDIA is also important and crucial to talk about here, is the track. It makes it all the way through. If this makes it all the way through central Mexico, guess where it's going to end up? Right out here in the Atlantic. Now, right now, this is not the main area of interest in regards to this. This is a little tropical disturbance. This is an entirely different tropical disturbance. But what I want you to remember is that the Gulf of Mexico is still very warm. Thankfully, this disturbance right here has a 0% chance of developing. It was at 20% earlier today, but it's since then dropped. So in regards to this potential area developing, we may not expect anything in the tropical realm, so to speak, but this will be bringing rainfall and the potential for severe weather to the Gulf Coast, particularly Florida. We'll get into the details of that more tomorrow. We do have a secondary area over here towards the main development region, which has developed quite nicely and now has an 80% chance of developing within the next 2 to 7 days. Will likely end up becoming Tropical Storm Sean if this ends up being the case. As far as where its track is concerned, we'll go back to the 7-day outlook, and we see this kind of taking a little bit of a slightly more western track. So this is going to have to be watched. This isn't showing immediate signs of turning out to sea. I still favor that though, because once this storm really starts to get its act together, those upper level winds are going to catch it and they're going to take it and more than likely have it turn off to the north here. We'll have to see how it plays out, but if it does kind of make it past this point, landfall somewhere within the Caribbean would be almost imminent. And then of course Bermuda has to watch this as well, especially as it tries to trek off further to the west. As far as any other storms worldwide, we also have Typhoon Bolivian, which is making its way to major hurricane status, and this is actually expected to become a super typhoon, or pretty much the equivalent of a Category 5 hurricane. So this thankfully will be hanging out at sea here, but if you look at the structure, it's absolutely incredible to watch. See really well pronounced eye beginning to take shape here. And when you got that buzzsaw motion going on here, counterclockwise rotation, it's absolutely incredible to watch there. But we have this pretty much flirting with Category 5 at this point. Not too many spaghetti models, unfortunately, with this, so a little less clarity here, but nonetheless, definitely need to be extra watchful if you're happening to do any sort of boating out in the ocean here. So try to avoid this storm by any means necessary. That's really the best advice I could give to anyone that would just so happen to be catching this video that's out in that area. But that being said here, well, Bolivian's not too big a threat here. It's mainly the big story being LIDIA and maybe the potential of an additional tropical cyclone coming into play here in the Gulf. And then of course what is likely to become Sean. So like I said, here's a look at what's like our the actual name of the tropical invest, which would be 92L. And we're going to go ahead and zoom in, take a look at spaghetti plots. Like I said, most of these are showing a westward component of motion. And like I said, really it's going to be the wind pattern is going to be a determining factor as to where this will end up going. So here's a look again at 92L, and here's the wind shear. We're actually in a somewhat ideal spot. It's kind of hanging in a pocket just to the south of where that most intense wind shear is. Still could affect the storm, but it's not gonna. But I can't guarantee that it would do anything to dissuade further development in the meantime here. If anything, there might even be a chance of it strengthening a little bit more rapidly, possibly. Not seeing this on the ensemble, which is good news, but as time goes on here, as we continue to go through this run, we can see that the storm eventually probably will get caught up in some stronger wind shear, and as a result probably end up getting kicked out to sea, especially once this dominant high does try to take over here. And then of course with the really wacky weather pattern that we're going to have over the US as a result too, is also going to help increase that wind shear. We've had some pretty strong troughs coming through, and I think this is going to be a big factor in keeping the storm away from the US here, but still can't guarantee anything towards, let's say, towards the Caribbean here, the Antilles, so to speak. But we'll have to see what happens with that. And then of course we're going to have to keep our eyes open for any tropical systems that will be heading from the eastern Pacific into the Gulf here. Wind shear is going to be a big factor in inhibiting any major development, but there could be an early window here, and I'm worried that this could happen right around the time LIDIA, if it can somewhat have remnants left over, could make it across into the Gulf, and there could be a chance that this gets to develop here. If so, I would be worried about southern Florida, but this is just more a theory than anything else. If this could even occur, I render the chances of it right now pretty low, but nonetheless though, it's something that definitely needs to be watched very closely. Of course, like I said, as time goes on, Wind shear becomes really strong over the Gulf here, and pretty much is going to be protecting the lion's share of the U.S. here. This is showing all levels of the atmosphere, so could be a kink in the armor here. So we'll have to hone in on things more if we start to see a more imminent threat. But as a whole here, it looks like for the most part we should be okay as we go through most of this month here. Now going towards the Eastern Pacific, it's a little bit interesting as well, because if you watch where these arrows are going, okay, so we have the wind shear here. We have it moving in this direction here as indicated by the arrows. But watch what happens, and this is what's guiding LIDIA through central Mexico. We're eventually going to see it push all the way into central Mexico, probably get stopped by the mountains. But if, like I said, we don't need to have that hurricane completely intact. If we just get some remnants and it can get a circulation going once again towards the Gulf, it could become a problem. And there's a pocket right here where the wind shear does look like it tries to lighten up. So if that ends up becoming the case, the chance for tropical development does increase slightly. Like I said, it doesn't guarantee anything, but it's definitely something to pay close attention to. So continue to go forward. We're still seeing that dominant pattern here. Good news is there's a fair amount of wind shear here, so I wouldn't expect too much more in the way of development in the meantime. Keep in mind, in both the Atlantic and the Pacific, or the Eastern Pacific I should say, hurricane season ends November 30th. So we're not done just yet. We're slowing down, but we're not finished yet. But that being said here, let's go ahead and look at the ocean temperatures here. So we'll start out by looking at the Atlantic, particularly looking at the Gulf here, and you can see it. 30 degrees Celsius temperatures across the board. Caribbean's a hotbed in its own right here. So concern definitely exists for any sort of tropical system that will pop up in this region. Once we start to really get towards this corridor here, landfall almost would seem imminent at this point. There's only so many places where there's still open water for the storm to go after this. So if we see anything make it towards this region, eyebrows definitely should be raised. And then, of course, we already know about the Gulf. Once we get in here, there's only one place for it to go. So that being said, eyes open still. It's not over just yet. Like I said, slowing down, but we're not at the end. Not by a long shot. We still have a whole month to go. But that being said, let's go ahead and look at the Pacific here. Eastern Pacific is a little, oops, that's central. Eastern Pacific right off the West Mexican coast, and I think this was a big factor in helping LIDIA strengthen so rapidly, because the wind shear was a little bit lighter here. But we're seeing a pretty similar deal with off of the Mexican coast here as we are with the Gulf of Mexico. Piping hot waters, almost near 90 degrees Fahrenheit or 30 degrees Celsius in translation, because 30 degrees Celsius is the equivalent of about 87.5 degrees Fahrenheit. I think that's what I remember, but remember, I'm doing these calculations in my head, so if I'm wrong, feel free to correct me. But this is definitely very alarming here. Really all across this corridor here, if any storms can develop with light wind shear, this could become a big problem. So we'll have to watch this and see what happens. But we may see another system develop soon if we don't get some decent upwelling with these waters here. And the thing is, LIDIA strengthens so close to the coast here too, which is really problematic, because there wasn't really much, it really didn't cause too much in the way of upwelling. Upwelling is when we bring those colder waters up towards the sea surface, which is usually where these hurricanes draw their strength from. But since we haven't really seen that, there is a chance that we could see another instance. Not guaranteeing it, but definitely a big problem nonetheless. So, like I said, I know I'm repeating myself, but it's just shocking how quickly things can change. So definitely need to be on the lookout in the weeks ahead, and really even past the end of hurricane seasons, things can still happen that are well, unexpected and somewhat almost inexplicable at the time. But that being said, hope you guys enjoyed the video. You found it useful. Make sure you're smashing that like button, decimating that subscribe button, hitting that share button. Make sure you are again sharing the videos, telling your friends about it. We're trying to get back on track here now that renovations are finally over on my end. I don't have to rearrange my room anymore, so we're gonna get back to a much more stable schedule now. But till then, till the next video, which will probably be in the morning, it's been Metalhead Weatherman. You guys have a good night, and I will see you soon.